Hey guys, here on another edition of How You Going? Sharing stories with Tom. Really excited today because we got our furthest away guest that we chatted to so far, and probably one of the boys that I've known the longest out of anyone we're going to chat. And it goes right back to probably when we were, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old. But Darren West, Dagger, Brofessional Ironman, whatever you want to call, like he's been one of the boys for a long time. And even though through my journey I've moved away to a different country and we probably can't get further apart at the moment with country-wise, we've followed each other's journey, and he's doing some pretty amazing stuff at the moment. So pleasure to have you on for a chat, bro. And yeah, welcome. But what we do to
Thanks, bro.
start off with is the name of the chat is How You Going? Now, How You Going, I don't know if you know, but it was a term started by the diggers, so the Australian Army back in the day, to actually check in on their mates. And it's turned into more of a colloquial welcome now in Australia. So
Yep.
I'd like to start everything off by going, Darren, how you going?
Good. Thanks, Tom. It's good to be here, bro, and good to reconnect. We've obviously followed each other on the social media. What we do in this day and age, you don't have pen and paper. It's it's awesome to see you, bro, and have an actual face-to-face yarn.
And that's it too. Like the other added bonus about this, like reconnecting with you and like face to face, having a chat, hearing the voice, and actually reconnecting that way through not just words on a screen, which is awesome. But for people who don't know you, tell me a little bit about Darren. Where you from? Where you grew up? That sort of stuff.
Yep. Well, for those who don't know, yes, so like Tom said, we've known each other for the small town of Tukuroa, timber town in middle of New Zealand, middle of North Island. So yes, so born and bred Tukuroa. Grew up, the standard, mum and dad at home, younger brother playing every sport, running around frosty days playing footy and in the
People
winter
still
and
don't believe
playing
we
league.
played we played in frost and bare feet. That's a cracker.
100%, and then, so grew up in Toke, parents separated when I was 15, which is, pretty standard these days, and carried on and moved out of home and went down to Wellington to study. Studied some sports science, and so that's kind of what took me to Wellington out of Tukuroa. But had a great upbringing, in a small town, close mates, and like we said before, Tom's, haven't seen or had a beer with you for far out. I can't remember the last time actually, but catching up now, it's just like I saw you yesterday. As when we see our mates from home, it's always choice.
And yeah, look, you pretty much nailed it there. Like growing up in Tukuroa, like we did, we were like brothers growing up, like all of us, whether we had our rivalries on the rugby field or through schools and things like that. But there was those times where I know even high school parties where to start off with it was like, oh no, there's Toke High boys, there's Forest View boys, but then by the end of it, all singing along and having a great old fun anyway. So
yeah, 100%, bro, and that's how it is, and that's probably what grounded my values in life from day dot is multicultural society. It doesn't matter you're brown, white, yellow, purple, gay, whatever. You just accept each other for what they are, and you could have the high socioeconomic person hanging out with the person who's on social welfare. It doesn't really matter. You don't really care about that sort of stuff growing up in a small town like Tukuroa.
exactly, man. And like I share that story pretty openly about people, and like that I didn't really encounter any sort of racism or anything like that growing up until I actually moved to Australia, and which was in a small town there. But it's looking back on it now and like looking at people like put people in boxes and things like that. Excuse me. Like we were probably the minorities growing up. We were the little white boys running around with everyone. And so looking back like that sort of really shaped who I was and the way that I interact with people as well. So
Yep, definitely.
So man, you went away to Wellington. I know there's some really important things there that I really want to touch on. But today, at home, sitting at home on the couch, who's Darren?
So sitting at home on the couch now. So Darren, he's 38 years old. He's got a fiance, Espy. She's born in the Philippines, but yeah, dad's a Kiwi, so she grew up in Aotearoa. Yeah, so Darren's a health and safety investigator. Got a 15-year-old daughter, 13-year-old stepdaughter, and 15-month-old young fella. So yeah, that's Darren living in Mount Wanganui in New Zealand.
Beautiful. And can see the sunshine pouring in behind you, which is joining us. It's like we're just around the corner from each other. I got it streaming in as well, which is choice.
Definitely.
Okay, and then so tell us more about this journey of yours, man. So you went to Wellington, went down there to study. Where'd you go from there?
Yeah, so studied, and then wanted to become a cop. So did all the application process, got through, and at that stage I was, just finished varsity, found out I was going to be a dad. Basically, the day that I graduated, it was basically, or finished uni, is basically, hey, I'm pregnant with my daughter's mother. So it's kind of like, wow, we better rush that police application through. And at the time, I was only 21, and they sort of said, hey, look, you're a bit young. Cops weren't really taking on guys that young. So they got me a job with corrections. So I became New Zealand's youngest corrections officer.
Wow.
So went in, and no real life experience apart from growing up in Tokoroa, and just give everything a hundy. And so started working in the jails and worked there for about 3.5, 4 years in different parts, and then ended up in the at-risk unit.
Wow.
And so I'm dealing with suicidal, psychotic, first-time prisoners. Self-harm was a regular occurrence. And, control and restraint fights, was on the daily. And as you can imagine, as a young fella, I was trying to push through my police application and shift work and all that sort of stuff. And then, but I didn't really have the tools to be able to deal with the ego that was coming. I developed quite a big ego because working in a prison environment, you're locking people up and you have that sense of power. And at the time, I didn't know that I was creating an ego.
Yeah.
But I also had that I guess hidden thing of, I'm getting this anxiety, I'm building up this tension, I'm building up this anger, resentment. Shift working. My mates were still going out. I was having to do shift swaps to still play rugby, and so I just started getting more and more angry, but not realizing it. And my out for that anger was basically playing footy, and so I'd play footy, and I'd get into scraps. I'd have poor discipline on the field, and then afterwards I'd get on the piss, drinking heavily, coming home late. My daughter's mum would be, where are you? And it sort of, I couldn't be bothered with her drama, at the time. And, it sort of just was an unknown downward spiral of young, immature, not being a great dad. So that was kind of, that was early on.
Yeah, right, man. That's intense, and thanks for sharing that with me. And I really, really resonate with that point of not being able to, not realizing that you needed an outlet and turning to drinking too much and just almost pushing people away so that they'd fight with you, just so that then you get that release, and then it's their fault, not yours. And
100%.
I totally went through the same sort of thing. So, well, man, so that would have been an intense couple of years, eh?
Yeah, so that was the start of it, eh? And I look back on it now to where I'm at now, and I guess I found myself now. But it was kind of like that. I guess I like to break it up probably into 3 chapters of getting to rock bottom, and that was probably chapter 1. And me and my daughter's mum, I was quite fortunate to get a contract to go over and play footy in England. And at the same time, I got rung by the cops and said, "Hey, look, we can get you in."
Oh,
So I had to make that decision. I'm like, far out, that's 3.5, 4 years later, mate. Just been offered this rugby contract. What do I do? So at the time, me and my daughter's mum were kind of like, oh, what do we do? So I decided, right, I'm going to go over and play footy in England. So I went over
that
there.
childhood dream.
Yep, exactly, bro. And my daughter at the time was 2.5, 3. So I shot over there with this, we use the term now, build-ups. It was a build-ups contract. All broken promises. I got over there, flights, accommodation. They were meant to fly my daughter and her mum over, and none of that happened. There wasn't a job to go to. It was just,
right.
It was a cluster. So then that created tension added tension between me and my daughter's mum. And I jumped ship off that contract after about 5 months and came home via Aussie. Thought we'll do the Brisbane dream like every Kiwi does, somewhere in there, and they flew over. But at the time, I found out that that relationship was pretty much over with my daughter's mum.
Yep.
It had done its dash, and we're just growing apart. We were young when we got together. We had our daughter young, and we kind of just went through a separation. And I came home, and I couldn't go back to the jails because I was then in shared care with my daughter, and I had to do a Monday to Friday job. I couldn't do the shift work. So then I couldn't go to police college because I had to look after my daughter. So that was the start of chapter 2. It's like, man, that was what my career was wanting to be, and now I'm having to step up and be a dad. And so it was kind of like, well, what do I do? And a guy at my rugby club got me a job in a fraud unit.
Fraud unit.
And so in a fraud unit. So I ended up doing sort of collections and fraud investigations and all that sort of stuff. So that was a Monday to Friday job. It worked really well, and became more settled. Me and my daughter's mum, we started getting on really well. But then I met who was then going to be my wife. Nice girl at the start. Things were going well. She had a couple of kids, and things were fine for probably a good 2 years. No real issues. She was an angry lady, but I kind of just put that to a side and rushed into the whole, marriage and buy a house, and as you do. And then I sort of started not getting invited to things because there'd always be a drama when we'd drink. I'd drink, she'd drink, and we'd argue, and we'd be that couple that was always having the arguments at the parties. But I never, this is chapter 2, and I never really saw that. And I was like, all right, why aren't I getting invited to these parties and these kids' first birthdays and all that sort of stuff? And, we went through that, and, I was still playing footy, and that was my outlet. So I kind of was oblivious to it all. And then I busted up my shoulder playing footy, and my outlet was taken away from me. So I'm at home rehabbing, and I'm like, far out. And then the recession happened. Things weren't, financially things weren't that good. And so we sort of managed to get through a few rough patches and counselling, and as you do. And, I'd have up and downs, and things would be good, and things would be shit, things would be good. And when rugby finished, I was sort of like, what am I going to do? And I managed to get this contract working over in Papua New Guinea at the Australian Detention Centre. And for the, asylum seekers. And bear in mind, I'd been working this corporate job for 4 or 5 years, and then I'm back on the coalface of dealing with suicide and dealing with fights and dealing with, and then added FIFO. We all know what FIFO's like, fly in, fly out, 3 weeks away, 3 weeks home, and it's hard being away. And then I'm having to balance my daughter, who's her mum, so sharing care. And then trying to maintain my, at the time, wife, her kids, and my daughter's relationship. so it sort of started getting a bit messy, flowing
Oof.
in and flowing out.
Yeah.
And then the shit hit the fan when I was away. We had a riot, and I got involved in that and saw a couple of pretty severe suicides, and was caught up in that. And coming home, I didn't have an outlet because I was married to a really angry woman. So basically, that was the end of chapter 2. I hit rock bottom.
Yeah, right.
I was, basically came home, went to the doctors, said, what do? I don't want to be with this lady. She's hitting me. She's angry. We're always arguing. It's detrimental to my daughter. She's seeing it now. She's done, she was 10 or, probably 10 at the time, and witnessing her dad going through, this massive arguments.
Yeah.
So I decided to leave, and went and stayed with my mate. And then one of the boys reached out to me, and he said, "Bro, what's going on? What's happening?" And he was the same mate that didn't invite me to his kid's first birthday.
Yeah, right.
And I said, I said, why did you not invite me? And he goes, "Bro, you're always that couple that argue. It's my boy's first birthday. I didn't want that there. You have to respect that." And that was basically the slap in the face that I needed. I'm like, man, I'm that guy that is an embarrassment to his friends. And
wow.
I'm an embarrassment to myself. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and I reached out to one of my mates who I knew had helped out with guys with PTSD, and he was in the middle of writing a book at the time. And I said, "Bro, I need help. I don't know what to do." And his name's Dion Jensen, and I hold him close to my heart. He's a really good man, and he helped me through getting out of he calls it werewolf stage.
Yeah.
And that was basically where I was at. I was a werewolf. I was angry. I'd go out on the piss and I'd get into a fight just because.
Yep.
Over nothing. And basically went through that toxic environment massively. And when I'd left, I kept going backwards and forwards and trying to rekindle, but it just wasn't there. It was a sunken ship.
Yeah. You went back to what was comfortable and instead of fully stepping out of the place where you should have been.
Yeah, because I was more like, oh man, how much money am I going to lose here? Oh man, I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose my kids. My car. And fortunately, we didn't have any kids together. And so basically, when I had really realized that dream's over, that was probably the start of chapter 3. I always, so basically got a real estate agent and just was real proactive. I was real estate agent, lawyers, separation agreement, just bang, 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 nailed all that shit and found a flat to live in. And it was like this massive, massive weight off my shoulders, massive. So that.
Before we go into that, because I just want to touch on a couple of things you said there,
bro.
And then you're talking about that werewolf stage, that now this weight off your shoulders, this ties into, and what you're saying is phenomenal, man. So thank you so much for sharing. This is crazy stuff. And but going back, you can see that thread through everything, and I'm pretty sure you're about to go here. It's that whole time you're doing things for everybody else. Everything was for her, for them. You were working for troubled teens and troubled youth and prisoners in New Zealand. You were in Papua New Guinea working, looking after other people who were seeing their problems, and then having that. You mentioned the word outlet so many times there, and that's an amazing thing that we know that we need an outlet of some sort, but an outlet's only there if everything's bottled up, and it's got to go one way. We're finding out these other ways to actually look after ourselves and be proud of who we are, that it doesn't then become an outlet, it just becomes life in general. It's phenomenal, bro.
Yep. That's nail on the head, bro. It's I always thought that sport would always be there, and at the time you don't realize that sport is your outlet. Sport's just what you do. And like you say, bro, it's just what you do, and it's just life. But reflecting back on it now, footy was my outlet. I got to hang out with my mates and have a good time, but it was actually for this, it was for your mental stability and not just physical. So so basically, bro, that was end of chapter 2. So obviously went through that whole separation, house selling.
Yep.
Seeing a lot of debt created because I had to do the old payouts and all that sort of stuff. But the thing was, I got some pretty good advice from my lawyer and said, you're going to walk away with a smile.
Yeah,
you might have to owe some money, but you're gonna walk away with a smile. And from that day forward, it was about doing this because I wanted to smile again, because I hadn't smiled for ages, hadn't laughed. You might drink and have a laugh and all that sort of stuff, but it's not a real laugh.
Different. And I can actually see it in your face as well, like the straight away the change in it, and the remembering, like not so much the hurt, but the pressures and the anxiety that it must have created. And now you're just saying that, having a smile and a laugh, like even your just demeanor there changed a bit, so it's wicked.
And as a young fellow, I guess we could throw back to where we grew up. It was you don't let your guard down. You don't become vulnerable. You harden up. Like you said, we're the little white boys or the half castes or whatever. So we had to man up no matter who it was, and it was ingrained. Get up, boy. And harden up, and that was just how it was. And so I never really learned how to say, oh, far out, I need some help here. You have to be self-taught, or you have to be at rock bottom. And unfortunately for me, or fortunately, either way,
that's
being rock bottom.
And you know what, that's actually a really good analogy. And like we all hear this rock bottom, but it's true. Like what we all wait till we actually get to that point where we just can't do anything else. And
And I was fortunate enough to have a good circle of friends around that picked me up. So I guess the start of chapter 3, bro, was I'm in a flat, and I've gone from earning big money overseas, given that job up, fortunate enough to get a job back in a corporate world, back in the fraud sort of area, investigations. So I was fortunate enough to get that, and just start to rebuild. Went through the whole divorce, so I didn't have to have any contact with her anymore. So that's out of the way. It's not like you go through a divorce and you've got kids together. It was just me and my daughter, and the only real contact, or you say baby mama drama, but I didn't have any, because me and my daughter's mum were 10 years down the track of being separated. There was no angst. We'd both grown up. We just were mates for our daughter.
People there for your daughter.
So that was, exactly, bro. And just reconnected with my daughter and let her know that, hey, it's going to be okay. It's just me and you now. And just started on that and regrounding myself. And then, so without being able to play rugby much, I needed something. So I got me a push bike. And when I was rehabbing my shoulder, I sort of met a few people at a local swimming pool, and they saw me out biking and said, hey, why don't you come and do a triathlon or something? And so I thought, oh, okay, that's what the old man did when he stopped playing rugby. So I'll go and give it a bit of a jam. And then my mate, a good mate of mine, Longy, I played a lot of footy with him. A Samoan guy, he was a couple of years older than me. He got diagnosed with cancer, and so I'd found something to sort of put a bit of work into. And then my mate's got cancer, and I'm seeing him at the hospital, and I took my bike in to go for a visit. And he's got a twin brother, and I was about to bike back home, and I was blowing a massive gale in Wellington, and his twin brother said, bro, I'll drop you off, don't ride home, it's too windy. And my mate Lungy's in his hospital bed, he's full blown bowel cancer. He goes, nah, piss off, he can ride home. And that was Lungy. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, sweet as. And so I rode home, and it was meant to be a 30-kilometer or 20-kilometer ride, and it took me nearly 2.5, 3 hours, which it was just a mongrel ride, and I did not want to be there. But a couple of days later, I shared that with Longan when we were at the hospital, and he goes, bro, yeah, do something epic now, do something with that. And so I entered this small triathlon, and it was a 300-meter swim and 15K bike ride and a 3K run or something. And I lined up, and at the time there was kids all around me, and further down the beach there's a whole lot of adults, and I'm like, oh, far out, I'm on the wrong place. And the gun went, and I started, and I got 100 meters off the beach, and this was in the mount, and realized, shit, I can't swim. I can't swim any further than 100 meters, and I'm freaking out. It's Leisure Island in the mount, so I'm right out past the breakers, and I'm going, holy shit, what do I do here? Fortunate enough, there was some lifeguards around, and then all the swimmers from the adults race, they were doing a 1 kilometer swim. They just swam all over top of me, so I'm freaking out, can't touch the bottom. By the time I sort of hung on to the lifeguard for a good 4 or 5 minutes, and doggy paddle my way in. And oh my god, that was the first time ever I thought I was going to die. So that was December. That was December 2015, and Long went through quite a big battle. And I went and shared that with the boys, and they pissed themselves laughing. And so I decided to enter a half Ironman off the back of that, and sort of go far out. This is something that I'm shit at. I'm going to work towards. So through that period, through the beginning of 2016, Long passed away, and he unfortunately wasn't able to be there when I finished the half Ironman. But that was sort of my first half Ironman was dedicated to him, and I carried him along the way, and really through that half Ironman and learning how to swim, how to bike, and a half Ironman. I joined a swim squad and met a whole lot of like-minded people outside of a rugby circle.
Which
drinking.
I'm guessing, like, because that would be pretty hard, because like, even though like I've been away from rugby circles for a while, but like we were around rugby circles since we were like 4 years old, and that was always the people around, and it was always an outlet wherever I moved in the world or to different towns and things. I could go to the rugby club and feel
100%
part of it. So discovering a new you with this sort of thing,
and I think separating myself from that rugby culture. I'd go down and watch, the boys I'd played footy off every now and then, but being able to stay, hey, because I go, oh, have you bought your boots? And as they do, and I'm like, no, I'm training for a half Ironman. They're like, far out, you're nuts, and the weight started dropping off, and started feeling really good about myself, and working hard, and being able to have an outlet again, and a different outlet. And instead of going and smashing someone on a rugby field or getting smashed, I'd go and ride for 3 hours. And so that was sort of halfway through chapter 3, bro, and then did this half Ironman, and at the end of the half Ironman, the coach that I'd sort of had helped me along, he said, "Oh, you're probably fit enough to do the Ironman in 4 months' time." Well, far out, I've only been doing this shit. I've only been doing this sort of stuff seriously for 6 months. And you're saying I'm going to do an Ironman? Oh man. He said, no, you've got it in you. You're going to finish, but you're not going to set any, records or anything like that. And I was pretty optimistic. So I was like, oh yeah, okay. So I started, a really big block of training, and I'd been on a few dates and all that sort of stuff, but not really sort of been interested in meeting anyone, because I was probably a bit anti-females, as you would be, a relationship and all that sort of stuff. And I just really wanted to focus on my daughter. So anyway, met through a mutual friend. I sort of saw on her Facebook a photo of my now missus, my now fiance, Espy, and just cheekily said, "Oh, who's your mate?" And she said, "Oh, just wanting to have a bit of banter, you know."
There
And
he
she
is,
said,
the Darren West
"Yeah,
of
yeah,"
old. Yeah.
and it was purely for banter. And she goes, "Oh, she's newly single. Why don't you add her on Facebook and have a yarn?" I was like, "Oh, no, all good. I'm training for an Ironman, you know, and all that. I haven't got time for that." Anyway, I had a wedding to go to in Auckland, and so I thought, oh well, we'll try our luck. So I dropped her a message, and that was the self confidence that
Yeah.
the self worth. Thinking, oh yeah, got a bit of confidence, and see how I go. And we just started yarning, and we met up in Auckland, and basically just connected really well. And she was living in Auckland at the time, and I was living in Wellington. And I also had Ironman coming up. So yeah, we went, dates and all that sort of stuff. And then basically I was up at her house a week before Ironman, and I got a real bad chest infection, and just massively sick, and a lot of the time in Ironman training and endurance training that happens. But it was my third chest infection in the 6 months of my,
Wow.
my training, and so I went to the doctors, antibiotics, turned up to Taupo, really sick, and did the swim for Ironman, and for Ironman,
Without
for
lifeguards.
those who don't, without lifeguards, bro. So,
just kidding.
well, there were lifeguards in there, but you got
didn't need them this time.
1,500 athletes, bro, and you got a 3.8k swim,
3.8 Ks.
Yep, and then
So what's that?
156
560 lengths
of
a pool.
Oh yeah, what is it? 20 lengths of a 50-meter pool. Then so yeah, you got about 100 and something. I was never good at maths, bro.
Yeah.
That's why I went to Forest U.
Yeah.
It's awesome. A long way anyway, bro.
Yeah.
So but the conditions were near calling off, sort of thing. They wanted to call it off. But in the back of my head, bro, I'd just gone 2 years of trying to get to the point where I was at, and I was just this massive adrenaline buzz. This is my outlet, this is washing away 2 years of building myself, and it's basically, this is the cherry on the top, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Totally.
And so yeah, bro, so battled through the swim. I was about 45 minutes longer than I thought I was. Vomited after the swim, wanted to pull pin, went back to that dark place of, where I'm at now, be grateful where I'm at. Banged out the 180k ride, and then finished the 42k run. Don't remember the last 8k.
So hang on. I'm just going to stop you there, right? Just so people know what an Ironman is, right? Because I'm sitting back here. I know what it is, and I'm freaking out about this. So 3.8k swim.
Yep.
How long's the ride?
What? 180k.
180Ks. Cool. And then the run?
It's a marathon.
It's a marathon. 42. Fuck out, mate. That's wicked. Sorry. So you pumped it out. You've done the bike. Then what?
Yep. Done the bike. Felt really good after that. Jumped onto the run, and basically the New Zealand Ironman is 3 laps on the run of 7.5k or whatever it is. So got to the third lap. No. So it's about that anyway. Yeah. And so I get out to the third lap, and I'm heading out, and S was there, the old man's there, and I remember them coming up to me past, but I'm basically going across the road, on an angle and not straight. And they said, you need to walk, otherwise you're not going to finish this. I don't remember. But basically walked the last 8k and still finished. Ended up finishing, and that was what my goal was, and went out to see them at the end of the race and collapsed.
Yeah.
Basically had emptied the tank and ended up on the drip and hospital tent. But I'd done it, bro, and that was basically, from there, me and S were strong. We, massive. We went to Bali a couple of months later. The relationship blossomed. So that was sort of chapter 3 done, bro. And it was life was primo. My daughter, I'd set a good example for her.
Yep.
And yeah, so that was kind of where the positive buzz that I'm on now was. That was sort of the cherry, and then life's good.
Wicked. Well, man, like, yeah, that's a phenomenal story. Like, it's awesome, and I just want to like dive into a couple of things there, because like you've depicted so many things. The reason, A, why I do what I do, but B, why I've created these stories, because hearing that, like that, the whole premise around this is about being proud to be you. And you know what, we were taught as kids, and probably like no fault of anyone's, but it's just the environment we grew up in. It's like, you know what, you're born
in
on
the era, probably. Yeah.
You're born on the ropes. Like, it's time to fight back out of it, and like, don't ask for help until you really need it. And even then, like, nobody ever thought you really needed it. And so we probably had that attitude growing up. But hearing that you've gone through seen those things, and like had to wear that mask of, you know what, this isn't affecting me, this isn't doing anything to me, I'm staunch, I'm tough, I can get through all of this. How can you remember that moment, or even thinking back now after chatting about those things, about how it felt to have that mask on, to be somebody else for so long?
Oh, yeah, 100%, bro. And I guess now I'm doing this sort of positive buzz for people, and trying to share that, to take the mask off. And my mate Dion, like I mentioned before, he's got this term, make peace with the mirror.
I like that.
And I use it a lot, because I could look at myself and not be comfortable. And I mean, I'm a good looking bloke, bro. We're from Tokoroa.
Exactly right. It's amazing these filters I've got on these Zoom calls now.
Exactly, bro. But I would go into, I was taught how to have a mask on and go into a high pressure, traumatic tension, excuse my French, but zero fucks given. I'm going in there to either de-escalate a situation by using whatever means possible, as long as I come out of it and I'm safe, or I could be going into an environment where someone's self-harming and I have to, save their life or whatever. But that high pressure environment, if I transferred that into everyday life, and I was aggressive, or with my daughter, if she had frustrated me and done something wrong, my way of dealing with it was anger and aggression and high pressure tension, because I always had this mask on of my work environment, and not being able to vent or talk about it, or have the tools, or even know how to express and de-escalate my own mental state, because that wasn't taught to us. We didn't have a de-escalation process. It was basically, you're all good, yep, sweet, all right, next job. And so having that mask on was, I'd have it on 24/7, and I couldn't take away and differentiate between work, home, sport. It was just one mask.
And like you mentioned a few things, and like Lungi's story and things like that, like it's phenomenal. Like when these things, not so much put in perspective, but like when you hear somebody, like, not so much dare you, but tell you can do something, and like knowing that they're doing it because they believe in you. And like there's been a few instances where I've had that, where you just need that like kick in the ass sometimes. But like when going through and knowing that you've been that person for so long, where anger's been that outlet, and you mentioned like the triathlons and the training and things like that gave you focus, gave you an outlet, but it made you feel good. And that's the thing that I wanted to touch on. And like when we played rugby, when we, like, even with me with my golf, when I started playing golf, when I realizing the positive effect it was, I'd undo all of that by getting on the piss that night, and then all of a sudden it was the weekend thinking, fuck, what a dickhead, I've gone and done this again, and I've done this again, and it's undone all the good work. So there's that self-harm in a way that we're turning those negative or those positives that we're working so hard towards straight into a negative. So in saying that though, like you're saying that you met a good bunch of people and like that you're training with and things like that. What Darren did they see?
A very naive Darren. Had no idea, and when I first started off the triathlon training, I adopted the same type of mentality with rugby training. You know, go hard, you're there for an hour and you just empty the tank and or same as the footy field. So I'd hit the wall a lot at triathlon training because it was an endurance sport. So at the start of training, I'd be at the front, sassing it, but by the end of it, I'd always be at the back because I was well and truly one of the bigger people. I was sort of at that stage probably just tad on 100 kilos, and it was all footy weight, gym weight. So they saw someone who had no idea, no gear, but I'm forever grateful that they would have a laugh and there was, banter. They'd give me shit and say, hey, bro, you need to do this. Just if you're going to climb a hill on your bike, put it in an easy gear. You don't have to go 100. Just, remember you've got another 2 hours of riding after this. Chill out, basically. So that's the Darren that they saw. They saw the single father having a balance, and I was very fortunate that my daughter's mum, would take her while I was training, and we could balance time around. So they saw me having to bring my daughter to swimming, and she'd park up with the iPad and while Dad does training. So that's the Darren that they saw.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but from what you said, you've been through all of this, and from growing up for uni, being thrown into a case where you're a young father, you're in these situations with work, and then all of a sudden now, like, there's a chance to be vulnerable, and there's a chance to actually go, you know what, they can actually see me for who I am, because I'm the one that's struggling in a world where I want to achieve something, but I don't need to do it through being staunch or being tough, and it's actually okay to be vulnerable here. And so these people actually really see me.
And with the group of people that I trained with, and triathlon, there can be a lot of ego people,
But mate, this group, I was 14,000 Ks. Like, purpose.
You could carry. But I was very fortunate with this group of people and the community, the triathlon community. They humble you. Anyone who has got an ego, that's cut down to size, really good. But I just learned through my mates to not have an ego as well, through myself, through my family. And I guess this was a sport that I wasn't good at, When I was growing up, I could pretty much pick up anything and be half decent at it. In this sport, I was absolutely rubbish, so I couldn't go into it having an ego.
Awesome.
So yes, that's kind of where I learned ego is detrimental. Detrimental.
And then bringing that back to talking about that, cutting out that ego, and then how much easier is it to actually go, you know what? Yeah, I'm not the best at this, or I'm not the top of the world, but I'm willing to work at it. And then when these achievements start to happen, like, how cool is it to know that you've done that because of you, not because of giving it or having a leg up or anything, but you've done it because this is Darren. I'm proud to be yourself and actually achieve this stuff.
And having to do it on my own. I had no one if I didn't train, because I'd always been involved, with team sports, and so if I missed a training, it was on me, and I had to look at myself in the mirror, and that's where that make peace with the mirror is. If I can look at myself and go, hey, I've given it 100% every single training, and if I missed one, that's okay. And because I'm not a professional, I'm doing this for fun. I'm doing this for myself, but and allowing myself to be okay and push myself and look at myself and go, far out, you just rode 100 kilometers. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then starting starting to share my story with my footy mates and all that sort of stuff, and close family and friends, and they're going, fire out, that's awesome, like, you're crazy, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you start getting that self-worth again, and so that was really cool. And then now, fast forward a couple of years down the track, and done a few other half Ironmans, and my missus follows me along, and it's just a whole lot of positivity and seeing mates out on the course.
Yeah.
You get all walks of life. You get people that have had their own journeys through depression, obesity, loss of limbs, loss of family members, and that's what I really love about the Ironman and triathlon community. It's everyone's got their own story,
and like that's so cool to hear. And but you said something like just before, and like being able to share that as well.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like going back to what you're saying about rugby and things like that, and like that was almost like another mask sort of thing that you're putting on, because rugby was your outlet that you went and did, that you smashed people on the field, did that, went and got on the piss, didn't go home, that sort of stuff. So that was you.
Yep.
And now because you've found who you are, and then you're proud to actually share that, and you can get other people involved in the journey. And I remember when I first started talking about golf and how my journey was, like through that. And I remember almost like that stigma that I don't want to talk about golf because like people are going to look at me funny because it's golf. And but then actually breaking down, going, no, you know what? I found so much more through it. Like I can get outside and get exercise. I can set goals. I can connect with people, like-minded people, and all these things for that mental wellness aspect. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, and people they give you shit about wearing lycra and all that sort of stuff, and but when they see what it's doing for you, that's kind of, and I guess you grow up. You grow up. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone.
Well, there it is.
Yeah.
You can be proud of who you are and what you're doing, and So that's a perfect segue into why, like, I want to pick on this. Well, not pick on it, but really look at it. The Brofessional Ironman. So the name of this series, the Instagram tag. So everybody jump on and follow Darren on there, mate. I think I've got a bit of an understanding of it, but give us the inside out of Brofessional Ironman.
Yeah, so obviously, bro, I've followed your journey, and when I sort of thought, oh well, I got the okay from the missus to go second time round and do an Ironman again, and but this time around it was sort of like we had a baby, So when you do an Ironman, you sort of have to do a year's training, really. So baby was just on the scene. I had unfinished business because of what happened with the chest infection, ending up in hospital, and I sort of thought, shit, I could have done better. And I thought, well, what's my why? And my why is my family, and I sort of wanted to capture that journey. But also catching up with a few, my mate Johnny Elder from Toke, you remember Johnny from school. He said, bro, I reckon you could get a bit of a following if you sort of start sharing your journey and from where you're at, because I'm pretty open with my journey with the boys, and they reach out now to me and go, hey, I'm in a bit of a rut, what do I do? And now, because they see where I've been and to where I'm at now, I'm sort of that go-to, or one of them, I'd like to think. And so, as you know, bro, I reached out to you and said, hey, look, you've started your social media gig, and any tips into what I should do, and if I'm going to post, and how do I make it real? And basically that was your advice, was be honest, be real, don't sugarcoat anything. And when we sort of agreed to catching up on this, I sort of went back to that message, and I think that was sort of July last year. And so I needed to have a bit of a catch line, and I like to use the word chur or bro, and I'm pretty rough around the edges. Can put on my my professional voice when I have to, but So I thought Brofessional Ironman sort of was was a good catchphrase. I wanted to appeal to people that were just battlers, anyone who just wants to give it a go, and anyone that really wants to listen. And if I could help one person get off the couch and follow me along the way, that was sort of
awesome.
My idea behind it.
Yeah. And I know, like, even just before coming up to have this chat, I was having a chat with Mandy about things, and she's like, "Oh, make sure you get all this. Make sure you get all this." So, like, you definitely got followers all around the world now, bro. So, and it's been wicked following that journey, the hard work, the training. But like when it gets through that, like, let's just say 6 months in, or there would have been a time, like you let me know, especially with the 1-year-old. All this pressure building again. Was there that time along it where not so much I'm going to give it up, but I'm like, man, why am I doing this? Or I'm getting that feeling, that angst, that not good feelings again.
Yeah. Bro, I had that this second time round. I had that a lot. I take my hat off to my missus. And I shared a few posts along the journey, and those who followed along would know that I had a few back issues just from an old rugby injury that I had to rehab. So it was a frustration of rehabbing and not being able to fully commit to the running aspect. A baby, sleepless nights, my missus transitioning back into work. I'll freely put my hand up and say, if you're going to do Ironman, don't do it when you've just had a baby, because it's not fair. It wasn't fair on my missus, and I'm forever grateful for her. So I had to make sure that when I'm doing these training sessions and I'm out on a 5-hour ride or a run, I have to make sure that it's my output is there, and I'm not mucking around and I had to flick back straight into dad mode or partner mode when I get home. So I found that quite a lot different this time round, because first time round, we were doing the long distance here in Auckland. I was in Wellington. We didn't have the baby, so very different. But I grew a lot this time round. Awesome. I learned to be more vulnerable as well and share.
Cool. Yeah.
Share. So that was kind of.
So, man, like, before we wrap it up, what happened with the Ironman?
So, yes, I had a goal of finishing again and getting in before KFC closed. So this time round, bro, swim, epic, really hit my target on the swim. And then, got in under time on my swim. Conditions were perfect. Ride was awesome. I was only a minute difference on the time from last time.
Wow.
And my run, my goal was to finish before KFC closed and be grateful, and have gratitude. And there's a shitload of volunteers that happen to be there on the day. So I made sure I thanked them, and my missus and her family were there. Unfortunately, my daughter couldn't come up. She had a volleyball tournament, but they were there on the sideline through thick and thin, and every time they just popped up in the right places throughout the day when I was in that locker. And she just knew, and so did her family and my old man. And finishing, I knocked off nearly 2 hours off my old time from 2017.
What was it?
So my finish time was 13:29 this year. So you get 17 hours to do this thing. The pros do it in like 8 hours, but us battlers,
different story.
Down the back end. Yeah, you want to make the most of it. You pay $1,000 to enter this thing, so you want to make sure you get all your food and take your time, bro.
Yeah, definitely.
Or the magic happens when it's dark. So so really, really thankful. Thankful got over that, and now that's done, and I'm really grateful that it's done, because
KFC was still open.
KFC was open, bro, and I didn't end up in medical.
Yeah. But like, I just want to touch on something you said there about your family being there when you like they knew, and like you had your support there and the team there, and like, isn't it amazing that like when you're like probably in the rawest state that you've ever been in, you're vulnerable, you're on show, everyone can see it, and just that feeling of actually being so close to that team, and that team is actually there for you. Like they want to support you, and they want to support you because you're you, not because you're some dickhead that gets on the piss or because you've done something like that. And it just shows you what's possible with people.
Exactly, bro. And for my really close mates who I played a lot of rugby with, they were there, you know, and they all drove up from Wellington, and you know, they saw me as a footy player, as a drinker, you know, and I still have beers now and all that, but not as much as what I did in the rugby culture. But they saw me as that. They saw me go through my marriage. They saw me go through my divorce, single father, meet my missus now, you know, and they see the person that I am now, and
Awesome.
I don't need to be anyone else.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's and that right there is exactly what we're doing, this to actually show people that, you know what, like we're all on this journey, and it's okay to be proud to be you. It's okay to strip back that superficial, take that mask off, and search for something that makes you proud to be you. So I did one of the golf challenges, and like for me, one of the big things about when I did that golf challenge was bringing the conversation around men's mental health to a private golf club, and actually bringing my friends and team and everything to a private golf club to show that it wasn't just a rich white man's sport. And so having a team around where at the end of 12 hours and hitting those last balls, and actually like I broke down, I started crying and everything like that, just that emotional drain as well. Like
I love a good cry, bro. I love a good cry,
mate. It's that feeling of relief when you've got nothing left. But then just looking around and actually seeing, you know what, this is more than just my physical achievement. This is actually, look at how those guys over there are all together, and like you would have been with your whānau from all around, and like the rugby boys coming in. And mate, I was watching it on Instagram. I've seen all these boys posting and like the videos. Who I've never met them before, but I felt connected to them. So through you actually being you connected a whole other community, and well done on that, bro.
Yeah, bro, and that I'm pretty humble about that, but when people do acknowledge it, it's a nice feeling, and that's why I want to continue to you know, anyone that wants to listen or wants to reach out, by all means, you know, just hit me up, and I can share my learnings, my failings, and by all means, I'm always learning and always wanting to learn now.
Well, man, look, I know we got to wrap this up shortly, but you know, you're doing some amazing stuff, like with while you're in lockdown now, like getting the spin classes are going, or the cycling classes going with the boys. I've been keeping an eye on them. I'll share your tags and everything like that. So Brofessional Ironman on Instagram, get on it, get around it. Like Dad said, if you want to ask him any questions about it, I'm sure he's always up for it. But
100%, bro.
Finishing it off, man. One tip on being proud to be you, for everyone watching out there, what would it be?
I'm going to steal my mate Dion's catchphrase, bro. If you can make peace with the mirror, look at yourself and just be proud of who you are. I think that's the biggest thing.
Awesome. Yeah. There's only one you out there, so you might as well be the best version of it that you can, eh?
Always. And you're going to have days where you're going to struggle, but tomorrow's another day, and just be grateful.
Awesome, brother. Well, man, I think we might leave it there, because this has been absolute gold. And you know what, I've really enjoyed this. I've got a lot out of hearing your chat today, and really reconnecting.
Likewise.
So this has been
likewise.
So anyone else out there wants to get in contact with Darren, by all means, I know that he'll have a chat. This is just another example of why we're doing this, like really connecting people. I'm reconnecting with Darren, but hopefully we can connect with some more people out there. And you know, if you got anything from Daz's story, by all means, share us a line and let us know. So signing off on it now, bro. Thanks very much, and we'll chat soon, eh?
Awesome, bro. Thanks for the day. Appreciate it, eh? Keep doing what you're doing.
Cheers, brother.